My name is Sarah, and the day I found out my husband drained our daughter's college fund to impress his mistress was the day the ground split beneath me. 22 years of marriage crumbled in a single click of the refresh button on my bank account screen. One moment I was a wife and a mother planning for our daughter's future. The next I was staring at numbers that didn't add up, realizing the man I thought I knew had gutted everything we built. But let me start where it all began, because the fall wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling I hadn't wanted to see. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. The smell of coffee drifted through the kitchen sunlight, spilling across the counter where unpaid bills sat in a neat stack I kept promising myself I'd deal with after work. Emma, my 12-year-old, was at the table crunching cereal, her ponytail bouncing as she flipped through her math homework. The dishwasher hummed quietly. Everything felt so normal. Then I heard Mark in the other room. His voice was low, conspiratorial, laced with the kind of excitement he hadn't shown me in years. "Yeah, babe, just wait. She won't even see it coming. Imagine me rolling up in that car, everyone's going to know I'm serious." I froze with my coffee mug halfway to my lips. "Car serious about what?" My chest tightened. He laughed, this smug little chuckle, before lowering his voice even more. "Yeah, the money's handled. Don't worry, it's gonna blow her mind." The mug slipped in my hand, hot coffee sloshing over my knuckles. I bit back a hiss, hoping Emma hadn't noticed my flinch. She was too busy scribbling in the margins of her homework. I moved quietly toward the den, pretending to refill the dog's water bowl. Mark sat hunched over his laptop, eyes glued to the screen, a grin plastered across his face. His fingers danced over the keyboard with a speed I hadn't seen since the early days of our marriage, when he used to surprise me with last-minute vacation bookings or cheeky emails from work. But this wasn't that. This was different. "Mark," my voice cracked. He didn't look up. "Busy," he muttered. "What are you doing?" "Just handling things," he said, the same phrase he'd been using for months whenever I asked about his late nights and secretive texts. "Handling what?" He finally glanced at me, annoyance flashing across his features. "Don't you have enough to worry about already, Sarah? Let me do this." "Do this?" What was this? He slammed the laptop shut, the sharp clap echoing louder than it should have in our quiet house. "I'll be out for a while." He brushed past me, grabbing his keys from the counter. No explanation. No kiss. Goodbye. Not even a glance at Emma. The door shut behind him with a heavy thud, leaving me standing there, my coffee cooling in my hands, my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. I wanted to believe I was overreacting. Maybe it was work. Maybe he was planning something good. But the smirk on his face, the secrecy in his voice, the way he dismissed me like I was nothing more than background noise, it told a different story. The rest of the day passed in a haze. At work, I kept replaying his words, hearing them over and over. "She won't even see it coming." Who was she? Not me, that much was obvious. By the time I drove home, my nerves were raw. That night, after Emma went to bed, I crept back into the den. Mark's laptop wasn't there, but the faint impression of it remained on the desk. I sat in the chair, pressing my fingertips to the smooth wood, as if I could absorb whatever secrets had been hiding in its circuits. My stomach churned with dread I couldn't quite name. The silence was suffocating. The house felt different, like it was holding its breath. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed too loud, too steady, like it was mocking the chaos building in my chest. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe I was paranoid, that maybe years of routine had made me suspicious of any ripple. But deep down, I already knew. Something terrible was coming. The next morning, Emma found me at the table, still in my pajamas, staring at the bank login page on my laptop. "Mom, you okay?" I forced a smile, the kind mothers use when they're trying to convince their children the world isn't crumbling around them. "Just tired, sweetheart." She tilted her head, studying me with those sharp, intelligent eyes she inherited from her father. "Dad's acting weird." The words caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "He doesn't look at us anymore. He just looks through us." She shrugged, taking a sip of orange juice. "It's creepy." My throat tightened. Leave it to a 12-year-old to say the thing you've been too afraid to admit. I reached for her hand across the table, squeezing gently. It's going to be okay. I wanted to believe that. Desperately. But as I sat there watching her finish her breakfast, unaware of the storm about to hit, I knew nothing would ever be okay again. This was just the beginning. I didn't want to look. That was the truth. For years, I had been the one who managed the grocery list, balanced the checkbook, paid the electric bill. Mark had insisted on handling the big stuff, the mortgage, the savings accounts, Emma's college fund. I'd let him, because I wanted to believe we were a team. I wanted to believe he was good at something I wasn't. But that morning, after Emma left for school, I couldn't ignore the dread anymore. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling as I typed in the login information I'd memorized but rarely used. My breath caught as the page loaded. 247.83s. That was the balance staring back at me from our checking account. My eyes blurred, my stomach dropped. I blinked hard, convinced I'd misread it. I clicked over to savings. 0. A hollow roar filled my ears. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, even the chirping birds outside, all of it faded under the crushing silence of those numbers. And then, with shaking hands, I clicked on Emma's college fund, the account we'd been feeding for 12 years, the account that should have held over $75,000. The account Mark had promised again and again was untouchable. 0. The word slipped from my lips, a whisper that sounded foreign in my own kitchen. No, 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 no. I refreshed the page like maybe the bank had glitched. Maybe it would reload and show me the right numbers. But it didn't. Every refresh was another knife to the gut. I scrolled to the transaction history, my pulse hammering so hard I thought I might faint. And there it was, in black and white. Transfers, not 1, not 2, but 3. All within the last week. All authorized by Mark. The final one was dated 3 nights ago, when I'd been at my book club, sipping cheap wine and laughing about some thriller novel. While I was out pretending everything in my life was ordinary, my husband had been stealing our future. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the laptop. I called the bank, praying it was some kind of mistake. The representative's voice was polite, but detached, confirming what I already knew, but couldn't accept. Yes, Mrs. Patterson, those transfers were authorized. Yes, Mr. Patterson has full access. No, there's nothing we can reverse without his consent. I hung up and pressed my hands to my face. The skin was damp with tears I hadn't realized were falling. Mom? Emma's voice cut through the fog. I looked up and realized I hadn't heard the front door open. She was standing in the kitchen, still in her school uniform, her backpack slung over one shoulder. You're home early, I croaked quickly, closing the laptop. Half day. Teacher training. She tilted her head, frowning. What's wrong? I tried to smile, but my lips wouldn't cooperate. Nothing, sweetheart. Dad's just going on a trip. That's all? The lie tasted bitter. Emma set her backpack on the table and came closer. Her dark eyes studied me with a seriousness that didn't belong on a 12-year-old face. You're scaring me. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice into something steady. It's fine. Everything's fine. But she didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her brow furrowed, the way her lips pressed into a thin line. And then, with a smirk that was so startlingly adult, she said words that made me question everything I thought I knew about my daughter. Mom, don't worry. I handled it. I blinked at her, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. Handled what? You'll see, she said, simply turning toward the stairs. Trust me. And just like that, she disappeared into her room, leaving me alone with my terror. I stared at the ceiling, the walls, the spot where Mark's suitcase used to sit by the closet. I couldn't process what Emma had said. How could a 12-year-old handle anything about this? What did she mean? But the certainty in her voice, the quiet confidence, it shook me, because I recognized it. It was the same calm Mark used to have when he was hiding something. Only this time, It was my daughter. I sat at the kitchen table long after she went upstairs, the laptop still warm beneath my fingers, the empty accounts burned into my memory. My world had collapsed overnight, and my child was telling me not to worry. Except all I could do was worry. I stared at the dark screen, my reflection staring back. Who was I? A wife whose husband had just stolen everything, a mother who couldn't protect her child's future. The walls felt like they were closing in. Somewhere upstairs, I heard the faint rhythmic clicking of a keyboard. Tap, tap, tap. Steady. Determined. Like a metronome marking the beat of a song I didn't yet know. The house no longer felt safe. And for the first time, I wondered if my daughter knew more than she should. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator felt amplified in the silence. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound I had begun to dread, the faint, deliberate clicking of Emma's keyboard. It came just after 11. Tap, tap, tap. A steady rhythm, not the random bursts of a kid playing games. It was methodical, precise, like someone composing a symphony of secrets. I slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway. Her door was closed, a thin line of light spilling from the crack beneath it. I lifted my hand to knock, but froze. What would I even say? Why are you awake? Why do you sound like a tiny accountant or a hacker in a movie? Instead, I pressed my palm against the door, grounding myself. Then I turned back, retreating to my room, shame burning in my chest. She was 12. She was supposed to be innocent. And yet, something about her calm declaration earlier, "I handled it," echoed in my mind like a warning. The next morning, Emma came downstairs dressed and ready for school, her backpack zipped and neat. She kissed my cheek and grabbed a granola bar without so much as a word about last night. She looked perfectly normal. Too normal. I couldn't take it anymore. "Emma?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She stopped at the door, raising an eyebrow. "What did you mean yesterday, when you said you handled it?" Her lips curled into the smallest of smiles, not mocking, confident. "You'll find out soon enough." "Emma, I'm going to miss the bus, Mom." She slipped out the door before I could say another word, leaving me gripping the counter, torn between fear and bewilderment. The rest of the day stretched like taffy, slow and sticky. I cleaned the kitchen twice, folded laundry that didn't need folding, anything to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't spiral. But nothing worked. The image of her calm face, that cryptic smile, haunted me. When she returned from school, she went straight upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the tapping again. That night, I decided I couldn't stand it any longer. I had to know. After dinner, I knocked on her door. "Emma, can I come in?" A pause, then sure. I stepped inside. Her desk was neat, almost staged, school planner, open textbooks stacked. But her laptop sat angled away from me, the screen glowing with something she quickly minimized. "Homework?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. "History project," she replied, eyes steady. But when I glanced at the edge of the minimized window, I caught a flash of charts, numbers, graphs, nothing like history. My stomach clenched. "Emma," I said softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Honey, I need to know what's going on. Please don't shut me out." She closed her laptop slowly, turning to face me. For the first time, I saw not just my daughter, but something sharper, older, like steel behind her young eyes. "Dad thought he was smart," she said quietly. "But he's not as smart as me." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" I knew he was acting weird. Sneaking around. Always hiding his phone, closing his laptop when I walked in. So I started watching. He used the same password for everything, Mom. The same one. And he didn't even log out of his accounts half the time. I shook my head in disbelief. "Emma, how?" She cut me off with a shrug, like she was explaining how to solve a math problem. "I noticed the college fund was vulnerable, so I moved it. Weeks ago." The air left my lungs. "You... what?" "I transferred it into crypto. multiple wallets. Dad couldn't touch it even if he tried. When he went in to steal it, there was nothing left to take. She leaned back in her chair, almost smug. All he did was drain his own accounts. I pressed a hand to my mouth, part horror, part awe. My 12-year-old daughter had outsmarted her father. She'd protected her future when I couldn't. Emma, this isn't a game, I whispered. This is serious. You can't just… He stole from me, Mom. From us. Someone had to do something. Her words cut deep. I wanted to tell her it wasn't her responsibility, that she shouldn't have to bear this weight. But how could I when she'd already carried it so well? I reached for her hand. It was small, warm, steady. I'm proud of you, I admitted, tears burning in my eyes. But I'm also scared. This isn't how kids should have to live. She gave me that same confident smile, the one that felt too old for her face. Don't worry, Mom. I've got this. The refrain again. I've got this. That night, I lay awake listening to her, typing the sound, now less frightening and more surreal. My daughter had built a fortress around our future while I was busy falling apart. And deep down, though, fear lingered like a shadow. A spark of pride began to grow. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was rinsing dishes when my phone buzzed on the counter, Mark's name flashing across the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it. But curiosity, no dread, got the better of me. Sarah, he barked the moment I answered. His voice was clipped angry. What the hell is going on with the bank? I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean? I mean, he spat. I walked into that dealership today ready to drive off the lot with a brand new Porsche, and the financing guy practically laughed in my face. Said my credit was flagged, said my accounts were locked down. Do you know how humiliating that was? The image of him standing red-faced in some gleaming showroom while a salesman smirked across the desk almost made me laugh. Almost. But I kept my voice steady. Maybe you should have thought about that before you drained our accounts. A pause, then a low growl. Don't play dumb. You did something. You or your brat. I bristled. Don't you dare call her that. He hung up on me. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the dripping faucet suddenly deafening. He'd just admitted it, he'd tried to buy a car. A luxury car. With the money he stole from his own daughter. My stomach churned with rage. Upstairs, I heard Emma's door creak open. She padded down the stairs, her expression calm as ever. Was that Dad? Yes, I admitted, sinking into a chair. He was at a dealership. They wouldn't let him buy the car. Emma's lips curved into a smirk far too knowing for her age. Good. Emma. I hesitated, studying her face. Did you do something? She shrugged, pulling out a chair across from me. I just left a trail. Enough for the banks to hesitate. Enough for them to see he's a risk. I rubbed my temples. Honey, you're 12. And he's a grown man who thought he could steal $75,000 without anyone noticing. Who's really the irresponsible one here? Her logic was terrifying in its clarity. I wanted to tell her she shouldn't be proud of this, that it wasn't her job to take down her father. But the image of Mark humiliated in that showroom wouldn't leave me. For the first time in days, I almost felt light. That evening, while Emma did her homework at the kitchen table, I poured myself a glass of wine. The clock ticked softly on the wall, the scent of tomato sauce filling the room. Normalcy brushed against me, fragile but welcome. Do you think he'll try again? I asked. Emma didn't look up from her notebook. Of course. People like Dad always try again. But it won't matter. The system's not on his side anymore. The system… She smiled faintly. Let's just say he won't be getting credit anytime soon. Or loans. Or anything fun. I stared at her, equal parts horrified and proud. My daughter wasn't just surviving this, she was orchestrating it. Later that night, Mark called again. His voice was even harsher, desperate. Sarah, I need you to transfer me some money. Anything. Just a few thousand to hold me over. No, I said firmly, not a chance. You don't understand, he snapped. Rebecca expects things. I promised her he cut himself off, but it was too late. My chest tightened. Rebecca, I repeated. The mistress had a name now. Silence stretched on the line. Then don't make this harder than it has to be. He hung up again. I sat there in the dark kitchen, phone pressed to my ear long after the call ended. He hadn't even tried to deny it. Not once. Emma appeared in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the hallway light. He's falling apart, isn't he? I swallowed. Yes. She stepped closer, her voice calm, almost gentle. Good. That means it's working. The words chilled me, but deep down I couldn't deny the truth. Mark was unraveling, and Emma, my 12-year-old daughter, was holding the thread. By the weekend, Mark's downfall was no longer just ours to witness. The whispers began in the neighborhood, little murmurs that reached me while I watered the front garden or ran into neighbors at the grocery store. Did you hear about Mark Patterson tried to buy a car he couldn't afford? I thought they were solid. What happened? Rebecca's been seen at that wine bar with him. Bold, considering. I wanted to shrink into myself, to vanish. Every smile from a neighbor felt edged with pity, every wave laced with judgment. For 22 years, I'd built the image of a stable marriage, a safe home. And now it was collapsing in public. Inside the house, Emma remained eerily steady. She went about her routine like nothing had changed, school, homework, chores. But at night, her fingers clicked across the keyboard, steady as rainfall. On Sunday morning, I found her at the kitchen table, papers spread across the wood like the wings of some vast bird. Screenshots, printed bank transfers, copies of emails. My stomach dropped. Emma, what is all this? She didn't even flinch. Evidence. I stepped closer, recognizing Mark's name on the header, strings of numbers that could only be account dates circled in red pen. My throat closed. How did you get these? Dad isn't careful. He thinks if he deletes something, it's gone. But nothing ever really disappears, Mom. Her tone was matter-of-fact, like she was explaining fractions. Emma, this isn't for you to handle. You're a child. Her eyes lifted to mine, calm but unyielding. A child who just saved $75,000 from being stolen. A child who knows what's at stake when the adults don't. The words landed like stones in my chest. She was right, but the weight she carried wasn't hers to bear. I sat down heavily, my hands trembling as I reached for one of the papers. It was an email addressed to Rebecca. The subject line, Florida House. My pulse quickened as I scanned the text. They'd been planning to buy a house together. In her name, using his money. Using our money. He was going to leave us with nothing, I whispered. Emma didn't look up from her notes. He still might, but not if I finish this. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I buried my face in my hands. That afternoon, Mark showed up at the house. He didn't knock. He barged in like he still belonged, suitcase in hand, his tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. Where is it? He demanded. Where's what? I asked, my voice shaking. The money, Sarah, don't play stupid. The bank won't tell me anything, but I know you had something to do with this. Where is it? Emma appeared in the doorway, small but unflinching. It's gone, Dad. His head snapped toward her, fury flashing across his face. Don't talk to me like that. She didn't back down. You stole my college fund. I made sure you couldn't touch it. His mouth fell open, then snapped shut. He looked between us, his face twisting with disbelief. You expect me to believe a 12-year-old did this? Emma tilted her head, expression calm. Believe whatever you want, but you'll never see that money again. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the sound of his ragged breathing. Then he slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a dent in the plaster. You've ruined me, he hissed. No, I said, my voice trembling but clear. You ruined yourself. He stormed out the door, shaking on its hinges. Outside, the sound of his car peeling down the street echoed like thunder. Emma turned to me, her eyes steady. It's starting. What's starting? I whispered. The fallout, she said simply. That night, while the house settled into uneasy silence, I lay awake replaying the scene. The way Mark's face crumpled, the rage in his eyes, the calm in Emma's. She wasn't just reacting, she was orchestrating. And that terrified me more than anything Mark could do. The call came 2 days later, late in the afternoon. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me needed to hear his voice, if only to confirm what I already suspected. "Sarah." His tone was ragged, panicked. "You need to listen to me. Something's wrong. Very wrong." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Wrong. Yes, my accounts are frozen. My credit cards are declining. Rebecca, she lost her job. They escorted her out of the building. Someone is targeting us. This isn't just bad luck. Someone's out to destroy me. Across the room, Emma looked up from her laptop. Her expression was calm, her eyes too steady for someone her age. I swallowed. Maybe that's what happens when you steal from your family. "No, Sarah, listen to me," his voice cracked. "This is bigger than that. Someone is inside my accounts, opening my emails, posting things from my social media. Real documents, not fake ones. It's like they know everything." A soft chime rang out from Emma's laptop. I saw her fingers move quickly, screens flickering in rapid sequence. My stomach dropped. "Mark," I said slowly, watching my daughter work. "Maybe you should talk to Emma?" There was a pause on the line. "Emma. What does she have to do with this?" Before I could answer, Emma rose from her chair, walked over, and gently took the phone from my hand. She pressed it to her ear. "Hi, Dad." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then a strangled laugh. "Emma. Thank God. Sweetheart, someone's hurting me and Rebecca. You need to tell your mom I'd never steal from you. Never." Her voice was steady, almost casual. "But you did. You drained my college account. You used my name for loans. You lied." His breath hitched. "Who told you that?" "No one," I found out myself. I pressed a hand to my mouth, my heart hammering. Emma's tone was calm, factual, devastating. "Emma, you don't understand," he stammered. "It was temporary. A loan. I was going to pay it back, double it even. You'd have had more money than you ever dreamed of." "You took my future," she said simply. "That's not a loan. That's theft." "Emma, please." His voice rose to a frantic pitch. "I'm living in my car. I can't rent an apartment. I can't get work. My reputation's gone. Whoever's doing this, please, if it's you, stop. I have nothing left." Emma glanced at me, then back at the phone. "Actions have consequences, Dad. You taught me that when you walked out with your suitcase." The sound on the other end was part sob, part growl. "You don't know what you're playing with. You're just a kid." She didn't flinch. Maybe. But I'm a kid who's watching you destroy yourself piece by piece. Another long silence. Then his voice broke, softer now, almost pleading. "I love you, Emma. I love your mother. I never meant for it to go this far." Emma's face was unreadable. "You chose her over us. You chose money over family. That was your decision. And now, you're living with it." Her words fell like hammer blows. Then she lowered the phone, pressed the red button, and set it gently on the counter. The kitchen was quiet, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator. My hands shook as I reached for her. "Emma, are you okay?" She met my gaze, calm, unwavering. "I'm fine. He's the one who should be scared." And for the first time in 22 years, I realized Mark Patterson was afraid. Not of me, not of the law, but of his 12-year-old daughter. 6 months later, the house was quieter than I ever remembered it being. Not empty. Emma's footsteps still padded down the hallway in the mornings, her laughter still rose when a friend called, but quieter in the way a storm leaves the world hushed, stripped clean after its destruction. Mark hadn't come back. Not once. Word traveled through the grapevine that he'd fled town after Rebecca cut ties, that his finances were shredded beyond repair. Every so often, I'd get a late-night call from an unknown number, a voicemail of him begging, crying, sometimes raging. I stopped listening after the first three. Emma never flinched. He made his choice, she'd say, pouring cereal like they were just words, not the shards of a broken man's voice. We made ours. I watched her transform in ways that were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. At 13, she was building spreadsheets to track our bills, researching legal aid for divorce proceedings, writing essays about financial safety for school. One evening, I found her drafting a guide titled Protecting Your Family from Betrayal, A Kid's Perspective. The thoroughness, the clarity, it didn't read like the work of a middle schooler. Sometimes I'd catch her typing late at night, fingers moving in that steady rhythm I'd once feared. But it wasn't secrets she was building anymore. It was strategies, lessons, resources. She was taking our trauma and reshaping it into armor for others. I asked her once, "Don't you miss him? Even a little?" She paused, considering, then said, "I miss the dad I thought he was. But he was never real. Was he? Just a character he played when it was easy." Her words cut me, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Our bond, though, had only grown stronger. We shared dinners at the kitchen table, walked the dog through the park, watched old movies on Friday nights. There was a quiet companionship between us now, the kind forged in fire. One afternoon, Emma came home from school and set a business card on the table. It read, E. Patterson, Family Financial Protection Consultant. I stared at it, blinking. "Emma, what is this?" She grinned, a flash of mischief beneath the maturity. "Just a little side hustle. I help families online, teach them how to secure accounts. Recognize fraud, report suspicious activity. They think I'm some adult cyber expert. I've already replaced most of my college fund." Pride and fear wrestled inside me. "You're 13. Age doesn't matter online," she said with a shrug. "What matters is protecting people." That night, I sat on the porch after she went to bed, staring at the stars. Mark's betrayal had ripped our world apart, but Emma had rebuilt it, not perfectly, not without scars, but with a resilience I never imagined. She'd saved herself. She'd saved me. And in some strange way, she'd saved families we'd never even met. But the cost lingered. Sometimes when I caught her studying me with those two wise eyes, I wondered what kind of adult would she become, forged from this fire so young. Would she ever know the freedom of being just a child? Yet when she kissed my cheek in the mornings and said, "Love you, Mom," I felt hope. Maybe she wasn't broken. Maybe she was exactly who she needed to be. One evening, as she packed her bag for school, she asked, "Do you think Dad regrets it?" I thought carefully before answering. Regret isn't the same as understanding. Maybe he regrets losing what he had, but I don't think he understands why it was wrong. She nodded, slipping her notebook into her bag. That's what I thought too. And just like that, she moved on while I stood there, still marveling at the child who had dismantled her father's lies with the precision of a surgeon. Mark could keep his new life, whatever scraps remained of it. Emma had claimed something more powerful, her future, and the wisdom to guard it. As I kissed her forehead that night, I realized betrayal hadn't destroyed us. It had revealed what we were made of: strength, resilience, and a fierce kind of love no one could steal. If Emma's story reminds you of the importance of protecting what matters most, your children, your family, your future, I hope you'll share this story. Maybe it will reach someone who needs it. And if you'd like to hear more stories like ours, subscribe and stay with us. You're not alone. None of us are.